Some artists try to paint beauty, others try to paint reality, but one artist tried to paint the landscape of human despair itself. In the 20th century, an artist painted a scene so tragic that viewers reportedly felt genuine dread looking at it. No blood, no violence, just a silent moment in nature that reveals something brutal about life itself. The Storm by Beksiński. Beksiński was a Polish painter, photographer and sculptor who had originally studied architecture. It's funny, he had no prior formal training to be a painter, which makes the precision of his work even more remarkable. His painting, The Storm, is not one of his most popular, but one of his deepest and most symbolical depictions of existential chaos and dread. The torrential tempest cast down in the bleak of day across a broad horizon of emptiness and hopelessness. To understand his ability for such profound artistic expression, you must understand how Beksiński rose to such a level of articulation. Beksiński was born just 10 years before World War II. Poland was invaded in 1939 by Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, meaning his childhood unfolded during wartime occupation, forever tainting how he viewed the world after. Cities across Poland experienced bombings, mass executions, destruction of entire communities, the destruction of all he knew. And even though Beksiński rarely spoke about it publicly afterward, growing up in a country young and devastated by war, it inevitably shaped the apocalyptic tone of his later art. After World War II, Poland fell to the Soviet influence and became the Polish People's Republic. During this reign, artistic expression was controlled by the state. Socialist realism was encouraged in art, and dark art was often stated as very unconventional. By the 1960s, his paintings developed decaying Gothic architecture, faceless figures, apocalyptic environments, barren landscapes. Despite going against the grain, his defiance set him apart as one of the most iconic and prolific painters of his time and country. In this painting, The Storm, he sets the earth as a green and almost calm, tranquil setting, contrasted by the tyrannical clouds engulfing the radiance of color and leaving everything in its wake but a mere haze of desolation. His palette is consistent in declaring the peaceful and vibrant ground inevitably becoming consumed by the darkness. His use of a wide range of color allows him to effortlessly contrast the gleam of nature's light into the depth of apocalypse. Smoky grays and deep bruised purples swallowing the light blue sky. Lightning beginning slowly to manifest deep in the eye of the storm. Above we see what appears to be four horsemen woven intricately in the clouds, manifesting and bringing along the apocalyptic storm. The horsemen, they're trotting and cutting through the air of peace, making the atmosphere ominously heavy, the hooves of the great steeds thundering across the sky with every step, signaling their inexorable arrival, the thunder before the storm. Matching Beksiński's apocalyptic lens for life, he draws from the four horsemen of the apocalypse from the book of Revelations in the Bible, the final book of the biblical corpus, detailing apocalypse and inevitability. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are not just literal horsemen, but riders on their volcanic steeds, bringing chaos to awaken those who are ignorant. The four horsemen of the apocalypse each symbolize death, famine, pestilence, and war. Grim-looking riders, riding a red, white, pale, and green horse. They are called to conquer a quarter of the world each, and their presence evokes that dread of the apocalypse's arrival. The four horsemen emerging from the shadows of the clouds symbolize the radical propensity for chaos distorting order. Each horseman in the sky are a mystical herald symbolizing torrential rain, devastating lightning, fierce winds, and the dark miasma of the clouds. The rain symbolizing the intense grief of those lost during the Second World War and times of the apocalyptic disaster. The lightning representing the terror of apprehension, being possessed by a spirit of paranoia, and the wind cutting into the souls and forcibly removing the mask we all put up, and revealing who we truly are in these great times of distress and despair, disorienting our movements and blowing us in all directions. The dark clouds symbolizing the mystical and spiritual relevance of such a catastrophe. How nature is angry with the human race and now bearing witness to its inevitable doom. You see, the importance of the painter having horsemen above the clouds is for two reasons. First, the symbolic and mystic relation of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, translating to the horrors of World War II that he had to go through and endure. The light being cast into the heart of the abyss, darkness flooding the sun for what felt like an eternity. Despair that felt immovable. Second, the horseman is a symbol of unstoppable execution, a loyal rider who carries out the absolute will of a being higher than itself. While some interpret the four horsemen of the apocalypse as devilish figures sent by God himself, they represent and reflect the sin and immorality of humanity's own doing. The reason they are horsemen is not because they are evil, but because they are carrying out the absolute divine will of God. Transformation that cannot be resisted, judgment arriving from beyond the horizon. The moment history turns from stability to reckoning. The horse is the raw mystical power. The rider is the will being executed. The irreversible momentum working in tandem with the divine. They are the unstoppable force of nature itself. So what he is trying to symbolize with this piece is that in times of apocalypse or great tragedy, no one will be able to stop the horsemen from treading through. So we must prepare ourselves. The storm in this case represented the feeling of how it felt to live during the dark horrors of World War II. Watching the storm come, the horsemen stampede through relentlessly, watching the light drain from the sky inch by inch, being entrapped in a world where the sun forgets to rise for years, and the only thing to remain is a cold and bitter darkness. The storm persisting through, while all of humanity has vanished and only ruins and storms remain, watching catatonically, paralyzed by the realization that nothing can deter the inevitable. Oracles of the macabre, but also of truth. Now, this painting feels like standing in a world after meaning has collapsed, where the storm keeps moving long after humanity is gone and the horsemen have fulfilled their duty. Beksiński believed that horror could still be beautiful, that truth can be found even in tragedy and horror, because beauty is the window we use to glimpse into the divine. It touches our soul and asks us to meet the eternal at halfway. He once described wanting his paintings to feel like a dream photographed. So even though the imagery is terrifyingly beautiful and gothic in its melancholic nature, for those of you who know me and how much I love such themes and repeatedly establish the vehemence of such perception and appreciation, this composition is strangely elegant. This tension between beauty and dread is part of why the painting fascinates so many people, because Beksiński once refused to explain his paintings. He left them all untitled. And perhaps because the moment we understand them, we begin to see the storm everywhere. There's some paintings are meant to decorate a room, while others are meant to disturb the soul. And this is only the beginning. Thank you for watching this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment with a painting or literary piece you'd like me to analyze for the future. Stay tuned for more videos, and don't forget our Through the Briars podcast episodes dropping every single Monday. I will see you all in the next one. Love.